G'day guys and gal, not all Space Marines are equal. Some Space Marines absolutely dumpster on others. Veterans often cut through fresh recruits with ease despite the same physicality and gear. Some Space Marines, like Sigismund, make other Space Marines look like chaff and fodder. The same goes with Space Marine chapters. If you pit the Minotaurs against the Mantis Warriors in battle, the Minotaurs are winning all 100 battles. The Blood Angels, Black Templars, Ultramarines, these guys kick ass. Another fan favorite that seems to be pretty unstoppable are the Space Sharks. Terrifying shark lovers that stalk the deeps of the void, annihilating threats before they even properly enter the galaxy. A chapter master so big he is closer to a Primarch than a Marine in size. There is no doubt that these guys are a fan favorite, but has the memes and glazing masked a potential reality that these guys aren't actually that powerful and are just really good at aura farming? Or are they truly the goats that many people think they are? Before I get started, holy shit, we're finally completing the shark range for Major Minis, as I'm happy to announce 6 new shark models all dropping right now. The shark range is the oldest in the Major Mini range, with Shark Daddy being a beloved model for years and the Shark upgrade pack being a massive seller since it launched. So I thought, let's bring out a Shark Librarian, a Shark Chaplain, 3 Shark Jet Bikes, and most epic of all, a gigantic Shark Dreadnought. Going through these guys one by one, the Librarian, called the Caller of the Deeps. Now Magic boys are very esoteric and they lean into aesthetics hard, so we gave him the full shark helmet, some sick iconography, runes, and then I just thought, let's just get him to cast a fucking shark spell, hell yeah. This would be an eye-catching model in any shark force, but what is a magic boy without a spiritual boy? Thus we have the Chaplain of the Serrated Death. This guy fucks. Awesome details, a scary ass helmet, sexy ornamentation. Honestly, you cannot go wrong here, and another epic HQ unit. Then we have the Shark Hunters, 3 shark riding sharks. This guy was our most requested model to make for the range, so we made 3. Is getting a shark and cyborging the shit out of it until it becomes a jet bike economically efficient? No. Is it awesome? Fuck yeah it is. And then we finally have the Megalodon. As this is based off a Leviathan Dreadnought, this guy's fucking massive. Like much more of a Redemptor scale rather than a boxy boy. He features multiple interchangeable weapon variants, including Plasma, Harpoon, Claws, Autocannon, and Rocket Launcher. God damn, I'm actually just getting horny looking at him. With these new releases, we've created a bunch of new shark bundles and packs to make it easier than ever to upgrade your shark army or build a new one. I mean, we literally created the Abyssal Army bundle, which is enough sharks to create a genuine 2k army straight up. The Obliteration Squad is all the heavy hitters from the range. The Strike Forces is everything new in this release, so if you already have the shark army, just get this to complete the set. And then we have the Red Wake Command Squad, which is all the HQ shark units in one. It's Shark Week, baby. Pick up the new shark army in the link below. Today we'll go over the feats of the space sharks, as well as the times where they may not have actually performed overly well, to determine just how much of a bite these baddies actually have. Let's get into it. So first things first, we need to shift through the memes and actual lore, which I'll admit I definitely didn't help much back in the day when this channel was more of a meme channel with lore sprinkled in, rather than the other way round. The Space Sharks are more than likely one of the chapters of exiled Raven Guard during the Great Crusade. There are a shit ton of references to this. Their black eyes, their unstable gene seed, they're pale, why are they so far flung into space, why do they have extremely old but still valid identification codes, and so on. It's very on the nose. Because of how removed from the Imperium they are also scavengers, plundering gene seed, weapons and armor of fallen Space Marines, even their enemies, as well as having their red tithes, which is basically their right to low-key kidnap Imperial citizens and use them as recruits, as well as their grey tithes, which is low-key them giving themselves permission to steal a planet's resources. Now they don't just raid Imperial worlds, that would be cringe, but the tithes are not optional. So if your planet has been designated as a tithe world, you can either cooperate with them, thus they mostly take your undesirables and the gear you're happy to part with, or you can resist and they will take whatever they want from it anywhere. The reason I'm mentioning this is because it creates the Space Sharks' first glaring weakness. Their gear is often low quality, old, and repeatedly repaired. They do not have dedicated forge worlds or access to high quality, newly made Space Marine gear. Much of their arsenal is dated back to the Great Crusade. Likewise, their poor gene seed quality mixed with their need to tithe rather than having ideal recruitment worlds makes their recruitment process slow, with a very low percentage conversion rate. As such, the Space Sharks kind of blow their loads in war zones and then they need a lot of time to rebuild and recruit, whereas Ultramarines can constantly bounce between war zones and stay active as their arming and recruitment logistics is elite. There is a reason the Space Sharks don't pop up often in the lore, and it's not just because they're constantly patrolling the deep. They genuinely need long timeouts, and if they lose something like a starship or a suit of Terminator armor, it's very very hard for them to recover from that. Okay, for now quite literally the elephant in the room, Tyberos the Red Wake. As often chapters are power scaled based on their chapter master. Every time I talk about the size of this dude, 1,000 people prolapse and die for some reason. So I'll literally just quote the lore. Tyberos stands a head taller than his elite Terminator honor guard. Terminators are already tall. Elite Terminator honor guard, so the best Terminator armor for the best Marines, based off the Islander culture who are known to be larger than average humans, means his elite Terminator honor guard are probably already quite girthy. The Mechanicus adept who saw Tyberos did not register him at first as a living space marine, but rather as a statue, because he was way too big and he was so still. Tyberos also wields Hunger and Slake, which are believed to be Corvus Corax's siege lightning claws. There are some space marines out there that are very large. Alexis Pollux was said to be so big that Gilliman was unnerved by the fact that he was able to look him in the eye without needing to look down. Other marines, like the chapter master of the Iron Snakes, were gigantic, as are Haegir the Mountain and Ranulf, two very large space wolves. Think of it like this: if you gave Elliot Page Gene Seed as well as Hafjor Bjornsson Gene Seed, they both aren't going to end up as 7-foot tall space marines. Elliot will be a shorter space marine, Hafthor will likely be 2 to 3 feet taller, if not more. Tyberos was likely already a genetic freak in size before becoming a space marine, so it's really not that outlandish to put him up there. Tyberos also was recently mortally wounded, which sounds like a Primaris surgery setup, which will then push him up another 1 to 2 feet tall in height. So yeah, the dude is going to be a fucking unit, easily over 10 feet tall. I don't know why people keep pushing back on this so hard, just let it happen. But does girth equal power? After all, size isn't everything. Well, in this case, yeah. Tyberos has been described as blindingly fast, and despite his size, his arms are becoming a blurry meat grinder of death as he charges into the enemy. He specializes in tight confines, close quarter combat. He was able to solo kill a Tyranid boarding force, ripping apart all kinds of bioforms with ease, like he genuinely became the horror movie antagonist to the Tyranids. Likewise, the Space Sharks entered the Bad Dab War as a part of the Imperium's punishment slap of God army. The Sharks won numerous decisive victories over the Mantis warriors and beat them into submission. Since that was pretty much chapter-on-chapter warfare, it should be pretty clear indication that they stand above the average. As Tyberos is also a pretty hands-on chapter master, it's clear that he would have racked up a solid kill count of Space Marines, meaning he isn't just a one-trick Tyranid slaying pony. As for his war gear, Hunger and Slake, his chainsaw lightning claws, who came out with that holy shit, are considered ancient powerful relics, thus why people think they belong to Corvus. And there really isn't much that could tank them. His armor is modified Terminator armor, as normal Terminator armor isn't big enough to fit him. When Tyberos was attacked by Mechanicus assassins in recent lore, he managed to slay them before he was incapacitated, and those aren't just a bunch of run-of-the-mill Skitarii. They were Sakari and Rust Stalkers, elite Mechanicus assassins, the kind of shit that would be sent to kill Space Marines. The Rust Stalker weapons are specifically designed to cut through Space Marine armor after all. Another massive plot point of power for the Space Sharks is that they were one of 5 chapters sent to fight in the War of the False Primarch. Basically, some entity, maybe an escaped Primarch clone created by Fabius, maybe some juiced up Space Marine Psyker, maybe something else entirely, emerged in the setting in late M33. He was convincing enough that 11 loyalist Space Marine chapters, so about 11,000 Marines, joined it and created a Demi-Legion rebellion. Now this obviously was a serious issue. All other loyalist Primarchs were gone, and if the Imperium was seen to be going to war with a potential Primarch, false or not, it would be very bad PR. So the Imperium didn't want to send in the first founding chapters to deal with it. On top of that, it would literally end the Imperium as we knew it if a chapter like the Ultramarines was sent and then ended up defecting. So the Imperium instead chose 5 of the most vicious, ruthless, uncaring, and powerful chapters to take out the false Primarch instead. The Space Sharks were one such chapter. These 5 chapters took on the 11 chapters and the false Primarch and won. That's right, outnumbered over 2 to 1 and not as unified as the false Primarch's army, and they were still victorious. That is fucking crazy, and arguably the biggest flex the Space Sharks have. We did recently actually get a pretty awesome grudge match between the Space Sharks and the Night Lords. The awesome part of that is that it showed the fight in detail, was reasonably equal in starting strength, and unlike the War of the False Primarch and the Bad Dab War, it was just the Space Sharks versus the Night Lords without reinforcements. Basically, the Space Sharks were halfway through a red tithe, with this one being special as they were also lined up to be able to recruit a new librarian, something rare and special for them, but then the Night Lords show up. It was awesome to see the two factions go at it. The Night Lords were incredibly unnerved that the Space Sharks didn't give a fuck about their terror tactics and also fought in complete silence. No shouting for the Emperor or anything like that. The initial engagements were in favor of the Sharks. They're exceptionally vicious and bloodthirsty, matching the ferocity of the Night Lords, however they did not have the drawback that often came with that. They were disciplined, did not take obvious baits, would disengage in good order. In saying that, the Night Lords did manage to ambush them and surprise them a number of times, winning a few engagements and killing half the Space Sharks company, including their Terminator squad, but the micro war ends with the Night Lords being crushed and retreating. retreating, the red tide being complete. Now you may have mixed feelings about this. The Night Lords, despite how fun they are kind of known to be a bit shit. They lose all the time and are looked down on by basically everyone. They're often too busy fighting themselves to get anything meaningful done. However, the Night Lords are also great at picking their engagements. Invading a prison colony world full of tunnels, darkness and ambush points is their bread and butter. This was their ideal setting and they were the attackers, with the Space Sharks not actually aware their red tide was going to be interrupted. However, despite that, the Space Sharks still triumphed at great cost. They also didn't have Tyberos with them. The biggest thing to gather from that is that the Space Sharks have the ferocity of the Space Wolves, World Eaters, Flesh Tearers and so on, but without the berserker drawbacks that often fuck those chapters over and make them easily counterable. So basically, the Space Sharks' only actual weakness is that they are poor and can't recruit fast enough. Yeah, sure, they also have a gene flaw that makes them really antisocial, but Space Marines are pretty autistic to begin with, so it's not a huge deal. What is a huge deal is finding psychers that are compatible to become Space Sharks, as Space Shark librarians seem to hit a little harder and have access to abilities others do not, thus how rare they are. So with all of this in mind, just how powerful are the Space Sharks? Or are they just overrated? Well, no, they are actually insanely powerful for a chapter and have proven themselves time and time again. The issue is their budget. In a war against the Ultramarines, they would probably win more battles but lose the war, as they don't have the resources, logistics and numbers. They are designed for short, vicious and sharp strikes on the enemy, not sustained attrition warfare. Tyberos is an absolute monster combatant, and the fact that the Sharks have all the advantages of bloodlusted chapters without the downsides is absurd. So you keep swimming, you shark lovers, you. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up some or all of the new shark models. You won't regret it. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more sharky content. Join the Discord for more memes that I'll see you in the next one. Peace.